Hello, welcome to another Tweedy Pubs video. Now, I'm definitely one of those curmudgeons who starts complaining as soon as the Christmas stuff appears in the shops ever earlier every year. I think I saw mince pies in my local supermarket in August this year. But once it gets to December the 1st, there's no use fighting it. We have to accept that the festive period is upon us. So here is a cynical attempt to try and exploit that for views on YouTube. I'm going to do a Christmassy sort of pub crawl. The first pub, an all-time favourite, the Red Lion on Crown Passage here in St James's. And look, finally, all of the scaffolding's gone. Cheers from the Red Lion. As I probably said just now, one of my absolute favourite pubs in London. But this is the one I keep coming back to when I'm off the clock, when I'm not making these videos. Otter Bitter on tap. Favourite beer of mine. They had type of 3 real ales on, there's Tribute and also Timothy Taylor's Landlord, which I think is a relatively recent introduction here. And for a change, I actually managed to get some interior shots. Beautiful pub inside, but it's small. There's always a few regulars in there, and I don't generally like to disturb the regulars because I want to be invited back again. As I say, this is a pub I love and I keep coming to, so I don't want to make a nuisance of myself, but I did manage to get a few shots of the interior. It's an interwar refit, as I've probably said in previous videos. I have covered this in a video on St James's, so probably sort of 1930s decor. You can also see that in these, I think, lovely stained glass windows, which is a particular trope of that era. I think the Christmas decorations here are really, really tasteful. They keep it sort of restrained and classy, and I love the way they've done this. It's not over the top, not too gaudy, not too flashy. Just right, I think. Really nice taste to that. And there's some cute touches, like the Red Lion in that sort of mirrored cabinet over on one wall has a Santa's hat on. Lovely, beautiful pub. Love the staff here, love the beer, love the location, love everything about it. And I've always thought of St James's as quite a Christmassy corner of London. Two main reasons for that. Of course, we've got Fortnum & Mason here, famously expensive shop for Christmas gifts. And St James's Palace, they have, similar to the Red Lion here on Crown Passage, very restrained, very tasteful Christmas decorations. But it's usually a single Christmas tree at the back of the courtyard with a few lights on it, and that's it. And if all of that were not enough, St James's still has a number of functioning gas lamps. Won't be able to show you any of them actually working this time of day. Perhaps I should try and come back later and get some footage in the dark or in the gloaming. But fantastically atmospheric here as it's starting to get dark of a December evening. Having a little walk around the lanes of St James's, perhaps go and see the Christmas decorations at St James's Palace. Appreciate the unique flickering, warming glow of the gas lamps, and then into the Red Lion for a superb pint of bitter and a very homely, lovely, wonderful pub magic sort of atmosphere. Okay then, second pub, the Coach and Horses on Greek Street. This is a pub I associate with Christmas. I know that may not at first seem obvious, but I'll explain when I've got inside and got a pint or sat outside or whatever. Cheers from the Coach and Horses, Greek Street, Soho. It's nice. I quite like their Christmas decorations this year. They've gone for something a bit unique. I think they said the concept is Gonkmas, which had to be explained to me. Are they kind of Scandinavian, possibly Norwegian gnomes or elves? I may have mischaracterised that, but they've got all these kind of guys in little pointy hats all around the bar, including above that, I think it's 1960s, isn't it? Brewery livery behind the bar there that it's quite famous for. I have covered this pub before. I think probably the most thorough coverage of it was actually in the video I did about all of the Coach and Horses pubs in central London. I did some shots of the interior and the exterior and talked about where I think the name of this particular Coach and Horses came from, its relation to the church down the road, all that kind of stuff. So I have covered it before. I won't talk too much more about the pub this time, but I do like their Christmas decorations this year. Cute, I think, nice. Not too over the top, cute, bit unique, bit interesting, bit quirky. So the reason I think of this as a Christmas pub, quite early in the time when I was living in London, I think it was possibly the first Christmas day I spent in London, and didn't have a lot of family around or anything. I remember walking across quite a large swathe of central London trying to find a pub that was open for any period of time. There is a tradition that some pubs, usually for locals in England, I don't know if this is all of Britain, open just for a few hours on Christmas Day, sort of 12 p.m. to 3 p.m, traditionally while the turkey's in the oven or something like that. Not many London pubs do that. I know a few neighbourhood pubs outside of the centre of London that do that, but it's usually something that's sort of done on the down low just for the regulars. And having walked for an hour or so with London looking like an absolute ghost town on that particular Christmas day. Finally ended up here. It was during the reign of, is it Alistair Choate, the previous landlord, before it came sort of fully under a sort of managed agreement with Fuller's, as I think it is today. But it was a tenanted pub, I believe, at that time, Alistair Choate. But that's one of the things he did under his tenure, was to open on Christmas Day. Spoke to the chap behind the bar, lovely guy behind the bar. He recognised me, which is really nice. So it's always good to come here. So I'm sort of in safe hands. He said that they don't open on Christmas Day anymore, which is, you know, fair enough. I mean, a Central London pub, generally speaking, I would not expect to open on Christmas Day. So that's what made it all the more special that year. Sort of a Christmas miracle, if you will. I should probably talk about what I'm actually drinking here. It's rare to see a stout on hand pumps, isn't it? It's always a bit of a treat when I do. This is actually a Sussex brewery that I'm not really very familiar with. I think I've only encountered them once before, perhaps. 3 Acre Brewery, and this is their Skylark Stout. And that's really nice, actually. I'm enjoying that. There was another offering from them, but I assume it was something a bit grapefruity without sort of inspecting it very closely. But stout is usually safe territory, isn't it? As a backup, I've instead come to the Tavern on Fleet Street. Downstairs, it's maybe a little bit of a generic, is it Green King or something pub today? But I think this is an absolutely spectacular piece of preserved pub, interior fitting, Grinling Gibbons, possibly even dating back to the 17th century. I have covered this before in a video on Fleet Street pubs, but I think this is a magical corner. It's a shame the fire's not lit. Also downstairs, they had Green King's seasonal festive beer. It has a pump badge which is illuminated. It's got flashing LEDs and stuff. It does taste quite festive. It's got a sort of, well, very malty flavour, but also sort of dried fruits, and it's, I suppose, evoking Christmas cake a bit. But to me, it actually tastes a little bit more like malt loaf, you know, serene malt loaf in a nice way. I actually quite like that. I know some people probably have not particularly great opinions of Green King, but I actually think that's pretty nice. And I love this spot. I love this beautiful overmantel fireplace, Grinling Gibbons, possibly 17th century, or maybe it's a later recreation thereof. But as I showed in that previous video, you could see it when it was originally in the former location of the Cock, which is roughly on the site of what we now know as the Old Bank of England. Pub number 4 of today's tour. Classic, the Old Mitre. I've never really properly covered this pub, have I? But it's partly because I spent a long time researching the history of this pub, and I've always wanted to make a really detailed documentary type video on the history of it, and there were always a couple of missing pieces that frustrated me and I could never quite finish it. Suffice to say, I think it's a spectacular, magical pub, the Old Mitre, and let's just go and have a pint there without overthinking it. Cheers from the Old Mitre. Just gone for the old stalwart London pride there. I always survey the hand pumps here. They do often have an eclectic selection of real ales on offer. There was a 9% old ale, which is something you really want to be prepared for, and it's a bit of a commitment, isn't it? 9% beer. And then a couple of others which didn't really appeal, so here we go. Ended up with this. Good old London pride. The Old Mitre is a fantastic pub. I think of it as Christmassy because it has this very Dickensian feel down this little alleyway, and I believe this building is late 18th century. It would have been here when Dickens was doing the rounds in the early 19th century. So here's a look at the interior of the Old Mitre in the run up to Christmas. Their Christmas decorations, I think they've done a nice job of it. Again, I don't think it's wildly over the top, tastefully festive. And as I say, there is something about this location down an alleyway, this late 18th century pub building, that gives it this very Dickensian Christmas carol sort of feel to it. You could imagine, well, probably not Scrooge coming in here because he wouldn't want to pay for beer in a pub, but you know, Bob Cratchit, well, he was broke, wasn't he? The metaphor's failing actually now, but you could imagine it as a backdrop in a Christmas carol no one was actually going into because they were too mean or too poor. So I might take a little bit of a break from here on for the remainder of 2025. For the time being, I hope you have a great festive period, run up to Christmas. Hope you have a great Christmas, great New Year. Cheers for now.